There is no doubt that Horcruxes are the most evil form of magic. They stem from a type of sorcery so sinister that even the boldest of dark wizards hesitate to talk about them. This, in itself, isn't a coincidence, nor does it emerge from some ancient superstition. Wizards, even the darkest ones, willingly choose to hop out of the conversation where Horcruxes are involved. Knowing all that raises an even bigger question. Why did Voldemort push the limits of dark magic and create not one, not two, but 7 Horcruxes? What made him believe he could defy death more thoroughly than any dark wizard before him? And if this path to immortality was so powerful, why didn't others follow in his footsteps? To find the answers, we're about to unravel a tale of obsession and the ultimate ill-fated price of cheating death. Basically bad karma. Before we go on, let us know you're enjoying the video by subscribing to the channel. The whole idea of Horcruxes was kept a big secret in the wizarding world. Barely anyone knew what they were, let alone the dark secrets of how to create them. Take Hogwarts as an example. All the books that held the slightest clue leading to the word Horcrux were banned and stacked away in the restricted section. It's not like many books mentioned Horcruxes in the first place. There were only a handful of books that mentioned them, and even few dared to put out all the actual details of the true horrors of splitting one's soul. Magic was forbidden for one reason, one that most wizards never lived long enough to understand. Magic Most Evil was one of those books. It was considered to be the most comprehensive book on the dark arts and detailed literally everything related to the subject. But even this book barely touched on Horcruxes. It declared Horcruxes so vile that merely speaking of them was considered dangerous, a secret that was far too dark to even be uttered. But in the small book collection that talked of Horcruxes, there was one that dove deep into this branch of dark magic, called The Secrets of the Darkest Art. This book was so terrifying that Dumbledore refused to keep it on Hogwarts premises, even in the restricted section, simply for the fear that it would fall into the wrong hands. But this tiny act to save the wizarding world from Horcruxes came a bit too late. By then, Tom Riddle had already gotten to know all about the tempting secrets of the key to immortality. Even then, nobody suspected or predicted that Voldemort would become berserk with the idea of Horcruxes. Before him, there was only one known wizard who created a Horcrux, and that was Herpo the Foul. It isn't known what kind of Horcrux he created, who he killed to split his soul into 2, and how it was destroyed, but one thing was certain. No one ever even considered the possibility of more than one Horcrux maker. In fact, the idea of splitting a soul into 7 pieces and surviving the process wasn't just unthinkable, it was believed to be downright impossible. You see, murder isn't the only thing that can help create a Horcrux. A wizard has to go through a ruthless process where he commits a murder without an ounce of regret in his heart. If a wizard kills a person in a duel while trying to save his own skin, or murders someone out of mercy, it wouldn't count as the standard procedure to create a Horcrux. It has to be a murder that has been committed willingly, and it has to be a murder without any mercy. That means an Imperious Curse wouldn't do the trick either. After the murder, the wizard casts a spell that transfers the damaged part of the soul into the desired object. The Horcrux can be anything, a mundane object or a living person. What makes this object so powerful is the fact that it's almost living with its own tiny brain. It has sentience, essentially, which simply makes the entire ordeal even more horrific. You see, the small part of the soul that the wizard has left behind in the object allows the Horcrux to have the power to think. Some of the Horcruxes even have sinister magical abilities that essentially affect the thoughts of people near them. This was practically demonstrated in the Deathly Hallows when Ron wore the locket on his neck. He became angrier, more moody, and even bitter to the point that he would make snarky comments with both Harry and Hermione. But wait, there's more. It is believed that a Horcrux tends to strengthen itself by feeding from the negative emotions of other people. Anything from insecurity and bitterness to jealousy and greed. Horcrux would make it a habit to digest those emotions and become stronger. You can see this kind of negative effect it has by looking at Ginny during the Chamber of Secrets. Tom Riddle's diary was just another journal to her. She kept writing page after page in it without thinking much of it. Little did she know that the Horcrux was feeding on her insecurities. This way, it became increasingly stronger and eventually became an almost real-life figure, a ghost that could fight with a wand. This relation between corporeal forms and Horcruxes is a connection that ties the wizard with the object. Once a Horcrux is created, the wizard can live as a kind of ghost, even after his physical body has died. Slughorn claimed that only a handful of people would want to live that way. In fact, they would much rather prefer to die than linger in the world as a lone spirit. But Voldemort didn't think that way. His only goal was to find infinite power, and creating Horcruxes was just his way of getting closer to achieving that goal. Now, it still doesn't answer the question, what about the other dark wizards? In all of history, nobody dared to try and see how they could create Horcruxes? How is that possible? We can only speculate, but there are a few theories that would explain this bizarre detail from the wizarding world. Hit that subscribe button if you want to dive into these bizarre and exciting theories with me. Voldemort created 7 Horcruxes and was the only one of his time who truly understood the process, but he kept that knowledge to himself and flat out gate-kept it from everyone else. Why? It is no secret that the Dark Lord wanted all the power in the world. His obsession with immortality was the prime reason why he never shared this dirty secret with any of his Death Eaters. He feared that if anybody found out about the Horcruxes, they would try to build their own. That would naturally lower his own status as the most powerful wizard of the wizarding world. There was a high chance that anyone could dethrone him as the Dark Lord if they had Horcruxes to back them. This is precisely the reason why Voldemort was so ruthless and brutal as well. He knew there wasn't a lot to lose if he died, not even his own life. He was fairly confident that his extensively long list of Horcruxes would save him. Another reason why Voldemort never shared the secret to making Horcruxes was because he didn't want anyone to know his weaknesses. He knew if people found out about his Horcruxes, they would have signed up as his enemy for life. Obviously, that was not a risk he was willing to take. Creating Horcruxes is not an easy job. As explained before, it is a highly meticulous task and a pretty complicated one too. Even the most cruel wizards, who wouldn't think twice before killing or torturing people, wouldn't immediately sign up to create a Horcrux. It isn't the murder that's scary to them, it's the fact that they have to split open their own souls. They have to damage parts of themselves if they have any wish to create a Horcrux. That's not something anyone would be prepared to do in a heartbeat. You need an insane amount of ambition, like Voldemort, to even go down that route. Many people wouldn't commit this crime for fear that they would lose themselves and their souls in the process, but Voldemort did it 7 times. That's basically 10 times more sinister. Call it brave or dumb, but Voldemort was the only dark wizard ambitious enough to even think about pulling off this crime. As mentioned before, creating a Horcrux isn't as easy as choosing your favorite color. It means damaging your soul more than one time. That itself was an act so vile that most wizards would question what would even be left of the soul if it was split more than one time. That is basically the key point. You're splitting your soul into different parts. It's like carving out pieces of your own brain, leaving you with less and less of what makes you, well, you. If you get killed in the process, you'd basically have to live with it for the rest of your existence as a dark, wandering essence with nowhere to go. The cost of making a Horcrux far outweighs any so-called benefit. What's the chance that a wizard will become successful on the first try? Well, very little, honestly. Even if they are successful with their attempt, it is a hard bargain. Many people would bring up the debate that dark wizards could simply split their souls into one object. Then, it wouldn't be as harsh as creating 7 Horcruxes. But somebody might have opted to do that before Voldemort and after Herpo the Foul. The thing is, we don't actually know. If any infamous dark wizard did have a Horcrux, the wizarding world would have known about it. But after the death of Voldemort, the thing was out in the open, so there's a chance that someone might have tried to copy his tactics to gain power. With Voldemort out of the picture, people would have been more inclined to get the same power as the Dark Lord, but whether they were successful or not is a whole other debate. Lastly, there's also the obvious fact that there is little to no information about Horcruxes. There are hardly any documents and only a few books that talk about Horcruxes. Voldemort only got to know about them because he was crazy about power. Even then, he had to jump through many hoops to actually dig up information about how to make this thing happen himself. So it is safe to say that people didn't even know about it to begin with. The secrecy on this dark branch of magic may have been intentional, but it worked out because there were barely any dark wizards to go towards this route. Had the information been public, there may have been a few Horcruxes lying around. But worse than that, there could have been many foul attempts to create Horcruxes without them actually being recorded in history, which somehow makes this entire thing seem even more sinister. And that's a wrap. What do you think about Voldemort's obsession with Horcruxes? Was 7 an overkill, or was he onto something? If we missed anything, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the dark arts of Horcruxes, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you won't miss us on the next one. And I'll catch you next time.